Hello everyone, my name is Khushali Mehta and today I will be discussing about the two complex ethical dilemmas that is faced in the field of cybersecurity and technology. So in this presentation, I will be covering part A and part B. So the first we'll start with part A. So in part A, we will cover Anthony Rose's disclosure. It is a case for vulnerabilities disclosure in Bluetooth enabling door locks. And the second one is Sales Canada. Red Team's actions. So it is an ethical conflict involving a security tool presentation at DEF CON. So these scenarios will help us to illustrate the challenges that is faced during the ethical obligations collided with the legal ones. So now we will be starting with the first one, that is the legal considerations for the Anthony Rose's disclosure. So um, so we will be seeing the ethical dilemma faced by the Anthony Rose. He is a security researcher who tested 16 brands of Bluetooth-enabled door locks. So he discovered that 12 of them had significant security flaws. So after contacting the manufacturer, only one person responded, leaving him with a difficult choice. So in this case, he asked himself, like, should he publicly disclose the vulnerability to pressure the merchandise or to fix them? Or should he anonymously report the issue to customer safety regulators? Or should he share the information with the competitors to drive the industry wide improvement? So in this scenario, in this situation, it highlights the moral conflict between the public and public safety and the potential harm. So by exploring the flaws, Rose could protect the customers, but also risk giving them information to the tools to explore those vulnerabilities. So this dilemma is not uncommon. It happened earlier as well. So in 2018, a um, s- a security researcher disclosed a vulnerability in a popular smart lock, leading to widespread panic before the manufacturer could fix the issue. So this situation underscores the ethical complexity of vulnerability and disclosures. So from the legal perspective, if we can see from the legal perspective, in Rose's case, it involves the first thing it involves is coordinated vulnerability disclosure, which is CVD. So this approach basically emphasizes reporting vulnerabilities to affect vendors first, giving them the time to resolve the issue before publicly disclosed. So Rose followed this method by contacting the manufacturers, but their lack of response complicated the matter. So this is the link where I got the insights from. It's for the reference. We will be seeing the second one is the CFAA, which is Computer Fraud and Abuse. So this is in US. So this act prohibits unauthorized access to computer systems. Even though the Rose's intention under the CFF despitely responsible disclosing the flaws. Just give me a second. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. So yeah, so I was talking about the CFAA, so which is a Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So in the US, this act prohibits unauthorized access to computer systems. So even though Rose's intentions were to enhance security, he risked legal actions under the CFAA. So, for instance, there is an example which I can share with you. It's like Kevin Finster's case. It happened in 2017. So, where he found vulnerabilities in DJI drones, but was threatened with legal actions under the CFAA despite responsibility disclosing the flaws. So these examples illustrate how legal risks can discourage the security researchers from reporting vulnerabilities, leading to ethical dilemmas. For the ethical, now we will look into the ethical considerations. So, ethically, Rose faces a challenging decisions. So, the first one is public safety versus the potential harm. So, disclosing the vulnerabilities could push manufacturers to fix them, enhancing the public safety. However, it will also risk the empowering cybercrime. The second one is anonymous disclosure. He could take this approach, which could pressure the manufacturers, but might also cause public panic. It raises the ethical questions about accountability and transparency. So the third one is disclosure to competitors. So sharing the information with competitors could drive industry-wide improvements, but might be preventive it might be perceived as a self-serving rather than prioritizing public safety. So, if we to conclude, I can say like ethical guidelines such as the ACM Code of Ethics emphasizes the responsibility to avoid harm and respect the privacy. So, Roe's decision most balance these ethical obligations with the potential risk involved as well. Moreover, for the Anthony Rose cases, I can also conclude by saying that um, to continue to engage with manufacturers or customer safety guidelines, we have to be ensure about the vulnerabilities that are addressed without exposing the public unnecessary risk, and by also exploring the industry-wide famous or the platforms dedicated to responsible disclosures, like Maitri's CBE program, for instance, which allows the researchers to anonymously report vulnerabilities. So these case illustrates the ethical tension between the public interest and the responsibility disclosure. It also highlights the complexity faced by the security researchers. So now we will be talking about the second case for the part A, which is legal and ethical analysis of the sales for Canada Red Team members' actions. So we will be examining the ethical dilemmas faced by two members of the sales force, Canada's Red Team. We will I will be telling the scenario recap about the case. So they were scheduled to present a security tool, which is Meet the Stall at DEF CON. So it's a renowned cybersecurity conference. Despite being ordered to cancel the presentation by an executive, they still proceeded and omitting the technical details and not releasing the code. So they were subsequently terminated from there, and that that lead to questions about like professional integrity versus the employee loyalty, uh, or responsibility disclosure versus the organizational accountability. So these scenario highlights the conflict between the ethical duty to share the knowledge or for the public benefit for the legal or and for the legal obligation to respect the employees directives or disclosures. So first we will be seeing the legal constraints. Um, yeah. First, we'll be talking about the legal constraints, considerations. The first one is employment law and terminations. So, under Ontario's Employment Standards Act, termination for cause such as insubordination or breach of company policy does not require notice or pay. So basically, under the OES Act, if there is any breach under the company, then there is not required for a notice or a pay. So by defining the directives, the employees were seen insubordinate, justifying termination. So they had directly got terminated. They were not given like a notice period or like a service period where they can stay for like a couple of months. So, but they were directly terminated. The second one is intellectual property and confidentiality. So employees are typically bounded by confidentiality agreements. So by proceeding with the presentation, they potentially breach those agreements. The third one is the employment law and termination, which we just give me a minute. Yeah. Okay. So third one is whistleblowers protection. So employees are typically bounded by confidentiality, like and in agreements. Moreover, in Canada, whistleblowers protections are mainly designed to address unlawful activities and not ethical conflicts. Therefore, their actions were not protected under the whistleblowers law. So, a similar act occurred with Marcus Hudson's in 2017. While doing this research, I came up with this case. So he was the one who was hailed as a hero for stopping the WannaCry ransomware, but was later arrested for the unrelated hacking activities. So these can show us like how ethical actions can have complex legal consequences as well. So now we will be looking at the ethical considerations. So ethical considerations, ethically, the employees faced several dilemmas. The first one is professional integrity versus the employee directives. So we should ask like, should they prioritize sharing knowledge for greater good or respect their employees' confidentiality? This is the one of the most important questions that it needs to be asked. So basically, employee faced a conflict between their professional commitment to share knowledge for the greater good and their obligations to adhere the employee directives. So ethically, professionals should act in a public interest, but they must also respect organizational policies. The second one is potential harm versus the benefits of disclosure. So while the tool could help cybersecurity professionals defend the system, it could also aim malicious actors, such as like also releasing the tool could act severity professionally in defending symbols, but might also equip malicious actors. The third one is transparency and accountability. So they tried to balance the transparency and the responsibility by withholding the technology details, but compromise their accountability to their employees. So their decision basically underscores the ethical tension between the public interest and the organization loyalty, where ethical guidelines from ISACA, which is Information System Adult and Control Association, emphasizes the need for the responsibilities, disclosure, and maintaining the trustworthiness within the organization. So to conclude from the legal, to conclude from the legal perspective, the employee's decisions to proceed with the DEFCON presentation, despite the explicit instruction constructed insubordination and a potential breach of confidentiality agreements, justified termination from the legal perspective. If we see from the ethical perspective, they aim to contribute positively to the cybersecurity community, but compromise their accountability by defining the explicit directives. Moreover, these cases underscores the importance of navigating the conflicts through the internal communication channels while upholding the professional standards as well. So these scenarios illustrate the complexity of um, ethical decision making in cybersecurity, where public interest, legal compliances, or the organizational loyalty are often in the conflict. So this will conclude the part A of our presentation. And now I will be examining the ethical dilemmas faced, which was part A, which was examined the ethical dilemmas of Anthony Rose and the Sales for Canada Red Team. So next I'll be diving into the part B, where I have analyzed Joe Biden's executive and AI order on AI, exploring its impact, the AI governance, civil rights, and the global leadership. So, yes, here, yeah. So we will start with the overview of the executive order. So Joe Biden's executive order on AI, it was signed on October 30 of 2023 under the title Safe, Secure, and Trustworthy Development and Use of Artificial Intelligence. So these executive order is one of the most comprehensive frameworks of governing AI in the US, aiming the balance between the innovations with the safety and the ethical consideration. So in this part B, we will covering key provisions and policy orders. Then we will be also covering the identified gaps and limitations, intended audience, comprehension will international regulations, impact and implications. Yes, so let's start with the key provision of the executive order. So, from the main perspective, one should understand for the Joe Biden's executive order, and the primary objective is to promote competition and innovation in the AI industry and protect the civil rights and the privacy to ensure the customer safety and also to maintain a global leadership in the AI development application. So these executive order is particularly significant as it reflects the growing need of the ethical governance in the AI aims the rapid technology advancements. So, for example, the rise of the Chat GPT and other generative AI models, which has have huge concerns, and they have raised like high concerns about the misinformation, the data privacy, and the ethical use of the AI generated content and necessity a robust regulatory framework. So key provision and policy goals. So this executive order outlines several key policy goals. So the first one is promoting competition and innovation. So it encourages a competitive AI industry to foster innovation while maintaining an ethical standards. So this is crucial in maintaining the US technological leadership aims growing competitions for competitions from countries like China, which has been like heavily investing on AI in AI research and development. Second one is protective civil right and privacy. The order The executive order actually aims to uphold the civil and the labor rights. Secondly, protect the consumers from AI-enabled harms such as the algorithmic bias, and surveillance. So There is an example for this, for an algorithm bias, which I had found in my like while going through Google. Um, it is seen in like the facial recognition systems, which have been found to misidentify people of color more frequently, leading to ethical concerns about the fairness and discrimination. So these are one of the most very important things that we need to consider and focus on. Mm, ye- Yeah. And third one is the federal AI procurement and use. So it establishes the guidelines for ethical federal or agencies on responsibility procuring and utilizing AI technologies. So this is particularly it is relevant for national securities applications where ethical consideration have intersect with cybersecurity. Authenticity and intellectual property. So to order and to promote the development of border making systems for the AI generated content to prevent misinformation and to protect the intellectual property rights. So these will also help us to measure the addresses of the ethical challenges for the deep fakes, which have been which have been increasingly used for disinformation campaigns. The fifth one is like maintaining the global leadership, seeks to ensure the United States remain a global leader in AI developing and applications. So these policy goals demonstrate the administration's commitment to a balanced approach that promotes innovative innovations while safeguarding the public interest as well. Now we'll be discussing about identifying gaps in the executive order. Despite the comprehensive approach, the executive order has certain gaps and like limitations. So the first one is licensing regime of advanced AI models. So the order does not establish a licensing framework for advanced AI models, despite the industry leaders advocating for safety and accountability. For example, the Open AI Chat GP, Open GPT-4 and similarly large languages model raise concerns about the misuse, including misinformation and the harmful content generation. And a licensing regime could ensure the possible responsible deployment. The second one is the mandated transparency for training data. So there is no requirement for the companies basically to disclose the information about the training data or the model used, but which could be enhance the transparency and trust. But the lack of transparency has been a concern in cases like Clearview AI, if you have heard about that, which basically faced a backlash for scrapping the social media images without consent of the facial recognition database. The third one is the prohibition of high risk AI applications. So the order basically stops short of prohibiting high risk AI users, such as autonomous weapons and master villain systems, which pose significant and ethical safety concerns. So these gaps usually highlights the need for more significant regulatory mechanism to address emerging ethical challenges in the AI. Okay. Audience for the executive orders. To understand the global content, now we'll comparison with the international regulations. To understand the global content, Um, let's compare the US executive order with the international regulatories, specifically with the European Union AI Act. So the EU AI Act passed, which was passed in December 2023, is the most comprehensive AI regulations globally, adopted a risk-based framework that categorizes the AI system based on their potential impact on the society. So it imposes the strained compliance requirements for the high risk applications, including the biometric identification and the critical infrastructure system as well. In contrast, the US executive order emphasizes the innovation and the competition with a focus on ethical considerations, but lacks the binding regulatory mechanisms, which was seen earlier in the European Union's AI Act. So so these can be easily compared and we can illustrate from this comparison that the differing regulatory philosophies. So the EU prioritized regulations and risk mitigations, while the US emphasizes on the innovation and the competition. These differences could lead um, These differences could lead to challenges in international AI governance and cross-border data sharing, especially for the multinational tech companies. Now we'll be talking about the impacts and implications. So in the executive orders, the impact extend to various stakeholders. For example, federal agencies. Mm, Just, um, yeah. Yeah, the federal agencies, it mandates federal agencies to appoint chief AI officers and develop AI related security guidelines and ensure responsibilities, AI procurement use. The second one could be the private sector and AI developers. So the AI So the AI sets an expectations for ethical AI development, influencing the industry practices and encouraging the self-regulations. The third one could be the public trust and the customers' protection. The public trust and customers protection is like by addressing the civil rights and the privacy concerns. So the order aims to enhance the public trust in AI technologies, reducing their fears of surveillance and algorithmic bias. The fourth one could be global leadership and geopolitical implications. This order refines the US stance for ethical AI governance, influencing the international standards and maintaining the competitive edge, edge against the global powers like China and the European Union. However, the executive orders long term However, the executive order's long-term impact because it depends on its implications and enforcement. As it lacks the binding regulatory authority, it was revoked by, as you all know, January 2025. It was revoked by President Donald Trump. January 2025, yes. It was being revoked by the President Donald Trump, highlighting the challenges of ensuring the long-term policy continuing in the AI governance. So, to conclude for the Joe Biden's executive order on the AI, it represents a significant step towards establishment a comprehensive framework for the AI governance in US. It also addresses the critical areas such as innovation, civil rights, federal AI use, while emphasizing the ethical consideration and the public safety as well. However, it also leaves room for like further development in areas such as licensing, transparency, and regulation of the high risk applications. So the comparisons with the European Union AI Act illustrates that the challenges of harmonizing the international AI government and highlighting the need for the global corporations. So these executive orders sets the stage of a balanced approach for the AI governance, promoting innovations while also safeguarding the ethical principle and the public interest and the public safety. And by following the executive order, it will also maintain the trust within the people, and it will also help people be more trustful for the internet and for the usage of the AI and other AI platforms such as ChatGPTs and other AI alternatives as well. So, yes, that is all for my presentation. Thank you so much for giving me the time, and thank you for joining. And thank you for listening to Joe Biden's executive order on AI. I hope that this analysis would provide you with valuable insights, which can, you can be applied in your ethical or in your work places as well. Thank you.